Yes. Welcome to the Dynasty Deep Dive, where we go beyond the surface and into depths unknown. We've got a repeat offender. We've got our first time, second appearance from Mr. Evan Ringler, the data czar of Player Profiler, the man, the engine of Player Profiler. Good to have you on the show, man. And we're ready to get deep into some of your most provocative thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. First repeat guest. Wow.
Yeah, man. No pressure. But so one of the things that I like to do in my shows is kind of put the content that my guests have on like a larger platform, right? And magnify it and talk a little more through it. So some of what I got a hair in my nose. I got it though. So I pulled some of this stuff from your X page. Can you tell the people where the people can find you on X?
Sure. Yeah, it's at Evan Ringler FF. I'm not a consistent poster, but the posts I do make are very, they're just pure data usually.
Yeah, well thought out, informative. For the people that play fast draft, you have a lot of really interesting data around like the fast draft landscape. Some of that's a little older, but I mean, it was still super useful for me as I was trying to navigate the differences in that best ball format. Really like your posts on that. Love your page as a whole. So give Evan a follow. Check out Fast Draft if you haven't. And so, yeah, let's get into it. One of the things that you recently mentioned on a show actually was that you think the Chiefs offense is set to rebound. You've got a lot of leading indicators there in terms of, a second year Xavier Worthy being better than a first year Xavier Worthy, which makes sense, right? And more weapons. You've got Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Jalen Royals. I hear all that, and I look at the value of a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's like starting to slip in those dynasty rankings. Way below the guys like Lamar and Josh Allen, where you're not going to have to give up necessarily an arm and a leg for him. Now, I feel like the average, like it probably is tougher to pull off a deal for market value for Mahomes, like in real life, than it is on a spreadsheet. Like people will say, oh yeah, like you could trade two crappy players and get Mahomes. I don't think any dynasty manager is going to do that. But is he the type of guy where I think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's going to be in the league another 10 years, probably having it by a chokehold. Like, should we be willing to pay up a little bit for him because you're getting him at a discount before he could potentially return to what we've seen him be, a nuclear player?
Yeah, what I was going to say, you kind of mentioned it too, is that I wouldn't necessarily call him a strong buy because you're just not really going to get much of a discount. You can look on Keep Trade Cut or wherever you get your consensus dynasty rankings, and Mahomes will be lower than you think he should be. But on the actual market, whoever has Mahomes isn't going to be trading him for that price. They're going to be higher on him than the other teams in the league are. So I think he's a fine buy. If you want to buy him, there's a reason that he's much lower than Lamar, Allen, Daniels. It's because he doesn't have that rushing floor and ceiling really. So you can buy him at price, but I don't think you're going to get a steal or anything.
Yeah, he's QB6 on Keep Trade Cut. And at one point was obviously, closer to that QB1 range. Again, I just think this is a guy who probably the biggest mistake, I'm maybe a little biased here, biggest mistake I made in my dynasty career was a single QB league. I had Lamar and Mahomes, and I felt like I was too much invested in QB where I could go like liquefy that in some other positions since it was single QB. Lamar had trouble finishing the season, back-to-back seasons. So I ended up trading Lamar, getting Bijan Robinson at the end of it, and the 201 as well, and turned that into Jahmyr Gibbs with like the 107. That's neither here nor there. That I came out good. The team
Yeah.
won the championship this year because I have Gibbs and Robinson, but still, I did it with Mahomes. And I'm like, man, I really wish I could have hung on to Lamar Jackson somehow, because, yeah, he's been way more explosive than Mahomes the past few years. But I did it with that long-term mindset that you're playing Dynasty. This is a guy who's going to be in your starting lineup for a long time if you go out and acquire him. You know, he's not some flash in the pan like Justin Fields, right? Who could be a good player for as long, or a good fantasy player for as long as he's out there. But like, does he have another 10 years in his career? Like, the jury's definitely out on that, right? So, interesting. Okay, well, one of the other things you did recently was you talked through injury-prone players on press coverage with Wyatt Bertolone. That's also on the Player Profiler Network. I encourage you guys to check that out. There's a lot of good insight from Evan and Wyatt there. But one of the things you brought up was like Travis Hunter, you know, not necessarily being scared off of him, especially in redraft. But you got me thinking about, you know, him playing both sides of the ball and you being a guy who's very data driven, like just this guy being such an oddball in terms of, you know, probably lower longevity. So does that scare you off of Hunter and Dynasty?
I don't think so. Yes, Hunter does have, definitely has more injury risk than other receivers because he's going to play more snaps than other receivers, and he's going to have to tackle tight ends and running backs, which, you know, receivers don't have to do generally. But I will say that the upside of his incredible rookie profile outweighs this risk, in my opinion. I don't really want to factor in injury risk much into my dynasty rankings. You know, there are special circumstances for sure with guys like, I don't know, Christian McCaffrey, but you know, we haven't, it's not like we've seen Travis Hunter be super injury riddled in college. So I'm really not that worried about it. Let me bet on the upside. However, I do prefer Tedero McMillan
In
in
Dynasty?
Dynasty. So I'm not really ending up with a lot of Tet, although I really wish I did in my IDP leagues. I wish I got more Hunter, but my teams weren't bad enough.
um, Humble brag there. Uh, yeah, I mean, if you've seen my shows, you know, I'm a Colorado born and raised, huge Travis Hunter fan. Think he's going to be one of the guys that ends up wearing a gold jacket and is just going to be one of those players that like creates so much separation, a la like a Lad McConkey, where you watch him and you're just like, this guy is like getting wide open. Why? How could I have ever thought about fading this guy? You know, and it's one of these things where people are getting so in the nuts and the bolts about, oh, is he going to play 75%? Because if he plays less than 75%, he's useless. Like you guys talked about, when he's out there, they're going to scheme him up. He's going to get wide open. He's going to get fed the ball.
For sure.
I thought he was like one missed tackle away from making the preseason week one a lot more fun. So,
Yeah, like we said on that show, you know, he might only play 70% of the snaps, but when he's on the field, it's going to be either him as a decoy doing nothing or he's getting the first read. So I'm expecting his target rate to be very, very high this year, 30 to 35% probably on a per route basis. He'll be earning so many targets. And, you know, there's nothing he cannot do as a receiver. He is just incredible.
so does that make you scared of Brian Thomas in redraft? And
Not
in
really, because he's also just incredible and very different than Travis Hunter. He's arguably the best deep threat receiver in the league right now, and that's a very good match with Trevor Lawrence, who's been a very good deep ball thrower. He throws it deep a lot, and he does it very well over the past couple of years. So I'm really not scared off of either one of them. I'm just expecting both to produce, and you know, maybe neither hits the gigantic ceiling, but they both have a great floor because they're so good.
so Travis Hunter's elite, Brian Thomas is elite. It sounds like Trevor, this could be a sneaky good offense this year. And I've talked about this on other shows of mine as well. I'm all in there with you. Do you think that they
Potentially.
could be a top 10 offense?
I could see it. I could definitely see it. The offensive line is a real concern, though. I don't think the running game is going to be all that great this year. So I doubt that they get to top 10, but I could see it though.
Do you think it's a committee in the backfield?
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
We'll see how it starts. Right now it's looking like ETN, but last week it was looking like Bigsby. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see as the season goes along. I like Bigsby and Tootin at cost.
Yeah. I'm sprinkling them all in at cost, to be honest. I think they've all shown the ability to break off long runs. And I think that could be a thing. Like one of them busts a long one, and then let's ride the hot hand, right? And Tootin can do it. Bigsby can do it, and ETN can certainly do it. I think it's just he's the most expensive, but kind of has the worst aura around him just off of being such a letdown last year. But he's a former first round pick. He's played with Trevor Lawrence forever now, back all the way at Clemson. And so I think, again, I'm sprinkling them all in. I have Travis Etienne in a couple leagues, to be honest, in Dynasty, where the price kept going down last year, and I was just sending some offers thinking there's got to be a bottom here with a guy like him. So the jury's out there, right? I'm betting on the talent, and I probably get roasted in the comments, and I welcome it. Tell me why Tank Bigsby. One thing I will tell you is like Tank Bigsby seems to continue to struggle to catch the ball. I think he had one go through his hands in week 1 of the preseason, and it's getting to the point where I just don't see it. I think he's a much better pure runner than a receiving back,
Yeah, I think Tank Bigsby is clearly the best runner of the football on the team. It's not close in my opinion, but he is also by far the worst receiver out of that group.
Yeah.
So in a half PPR league, you can make more of a case for Bigsby. In PPR, you probably want to stay away from him. You can make a pretty strong bull case for ETN too. I think we saw Liam Cohen was such a good screen designer for the running backs in Tampa last year, and ETN is clearly the pass catching back there.
Yeah. I look forward to it, man. I think Liam Cohen, made Bucky Irving look really good. I think Bucky's a great player, but I think that scheme was favorable. And so I get what you're saying about the offensive line, but like I do think a good coaching and blocking scheme can sometimes mask the deficiencies, right? So
it can, but also the Bucks offensive line last year is like top 3.
Yes.
And the Jags, they might be bottom 3 this year. We'll see.
Yeah. And if
maybe that's a stretch.
We're in trouble. Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. Well, awesome stuff, man. We are going to next talk about there's a really great chart you put together that summarizes some of the great pass catchers in the league. So do not go anywhere.
People say, oh, there's so much free on Player Profiler. What's in the premium package? Well, it starts with the player rankings. We have the best process for ranking and projecting players, not just seasonal leagues, though. We're talking about tight end premium, specifically FFPC, best ball, specifically underdog, including their superflex rankings. And then we have IDP rankings, dynasty rankings, rookie rankings, Scott Fishbowl rankings, offensive line rankings by Dan Fornick, cornerback rankings throughout the season where you can see who's matched up with who. It's incredible. And think about who's contributed to our processes over time. Math majors, analytics powerhouses, plus you get the contributions from the real football guys. Billy Muzio, Dan Williamson, Bradley Stalder. That's why our rankings are the best. And if you want to upgrade and go all in, use promo code Underworld or your host promo code and you get $25 off.
Yeah, love it. A lot of great people behind the scenes making Player Profiler an incredibly powerful tool for fantasy players. Go all in. That's my biggest recommendation. The player rankings are great, but there's so much more. Dynasty Deluxe package. I use the Trade Analyzer tool a ton, and I love our data analysis. We were just talking before the show about like really getting the most out of that tool. So like I said, I promised the viewers a show. We're going to give it to them. You put together an awesome chart that, isn't rocket science, but I think tells some good stories. So I'm going to throw it up on the screen here. And why don't you just talk to me about what this is and maybe some things that you see from this chart that maybe might not be apparent to the naked eye?
Yeah. So the past few weeks, I've been working on bringing a bunch of new advanced metrics to the player profiler player pages, and those will be coming in the next week or so. And this is one example of that: yards per out run versus zone versus yards per out run versus man coverage. And it's interesting that we see some guys with big discrepancies, such as Jaden Reed, who absolutely dominates every other receiver against zone, but man, he is below average. And then we see the opposite, where um, guys like Dobbs and Cortland Sutton, they excel versus man coverage, but are almost useless versus zone coverage. Another takeaway I had here is that I've been, creating a lot of different advanced metrics charts this offseason, and it seems to me that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Garrett Wilson look pretty mid in almost every chart I can create. Hence why they are two fades of mine, especially in Dynasty. And then one more thing I'll mention is that every chart is a Jawan Jennings chart. If you look close enough, he is over 2 yards per out run versus both man and zone coverage, and only a handful of receivers can say that.
Yeah, that's a good company to be in, right? Malik Nabers, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith. So up there with them when he's healthy. The calf issue right now in preseason, I think, is depressing the value. But I think he's a guy where it's like in Dynasty, you can kind of go in and make an offer for him now because he's going to continue to ascend in his career. It looks like there's so many leading indicators that this isn't just a flash in the pan from a guy like Jawan Jennings. And that's coming from a guy I've been pretty reluctant on him in years past, just because 2 years ago he was free, right? And then even last year is is this real? But I think there's been a lot of sifting out of the data, and you can start to see that, yeah, there's some talent there. And he's a really physical player, which is also fun. You like watching the guy's tape, and you know why the coaches want to get him involved in the offense. So, man, talk to me on Garrett Wilson for just a second. I love the talent. I like watching him run routes, right? I like watching him play. He's good after the catch. Do you think any of this is just a product of the offense? Or, you said he's a fade in Dynasty, which kind of says screw the offensive situation just this year. Long term, I'm kind of out on the guy.
Well, I don't have any doubts about his talent. I think he's awesome. But I just don't see it really improving because he is on the New York Jets and he is likely to be there for the foreseeable future. That's usually how it goes, is you just re-sign with the team you're on, especially a receiver that's as good as Garrett Wilson is. And I just don't see it changing. This year, the Jets are going to be super run heavy, and Garrett Wilson's going to have a 30% target share. But in terms of fantasy, he'll be a wide receiver 2 again. So yeah, who really cares about that? I don't know. Do you think the Jets do you believe in the Jets to do right by Garrett Wilson?
Not as much as the Podfather, to be honest. I know he's excited about the Jets offense. I just think it's a rough ecosystem. I'm not sold on Justin Fields as a passer. It just seems like they keep, Garrett Wilson has seemed frustrated with the situation for several years, but he just signed a major contract extension with them, and is just going to have to put up with it, it seems like. So, he's a guy I got in my rookie drafts a few years back in Dynasty. Always struggled to get rid of him, even when I got really good offers for him because of the talent. But I think you're kind of selling me on the idea that the ceiling's only so high in this current environment. And we saw him with, a guy like Aaron Rodgers. And even there, it was all right, let me bring in Devontae Adams. What was that shit?
Yeah.
It's just
yeah, that was supposed to be the time that Garrett Wilson was going to actually break out and be a wide receiver 1. But Rodgers said no. He wanted his boy back.
One other guy I see who's kind of sticking out to me, besides the obvious guys that we'll talk about in a second, is Josh Downs. I think this is another guy in that same company of Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, a little bit better than just arguably than Zay Flowers. But I think these are, Devontae Adams is a future Hall of Famer. Zay Flowers is a first rounder, right? And Josh Downs is a guy who he's no secret anymore, right? And I think, I guess my question for you is the point at this point, is the cat out of the bag with Josh Downs? And is he kind of like priced appropriately in Dynasty, or are you willing to go and try and get him for his market cost because you think he's underpriced?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I've been just a huge Josh Downs guy all along since his rookie season. But now everybody loves him and
Right.
everybody realizes that he's an incredible receiver, like I've been saying. And yeah, I think he's valued around where he should be at the moment. I still want, he's kind of like Garrett Wilson, where it's really
Right.
bad situation.
Right.
And
And you can only pay
it
so
is
much for the
another
talent.
situation that is unlikely to improve
Right.
anytime soon. You know, a lot of people will say that in Dynasty, you should always bet on talent and not think about the situation that they're in. But when we're talking about quarterbacks, like the quarterback that's throwing to your receiver, it's really hard to get a good quarterback as an NFL team. I think it actually matters personally.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think Matt Harmon from Reception Perception, one of my favorite guys who charts wide receiver success rates, super bullish on Travis Hunter, by the way. He is very bullish on Josh Downs and has him like in his like top 30 wide receiver dynasty rankings, I think. So pretty bullish on a guy like him. Again, I am just throwing myself to the fire tonight. If that Lamar Jackson decision that I mentioned earlier in single quarterback wasn't the worst decision I made, I would argue this one was probably worse. I traded Dante or Josh Downs for Dontavian Wicks straight up last year,
Oof.
and
Last year, really?
it was during the off season. So, and that was kind of like, you're like, all right, like Downs showed me what I knew he could do as a rookie, right? And like Dontavian Wicks, there was just so much enigma around him, right? And I really liked what I saw in terms of his route running and a little more size. And I always, with smaller receivers like Josh Downs, I do get a little concerned with durability. And I think it was when he had it was either before the ankle sprain or right around there. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to shoot for the moon here because I thought in my head, Dontavian Wicks was the next Devontae Adams. So I'm willing to throw it up and admit when I'm right and when I'm wrong. I'm definitely right. Sometimes there's a lot of wins in my book, but I love sharing some of the most brutal losses as well.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That I can't make any excuses for you there. It's not something I would have done. But I will say that you should stop being down on yourself for the Lamar trade because you traded in a one quarterback league, you traded Lamar for Bijan.
Yes, sir.
This is a gigantic win for you.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
People
Bijan's like
still flame me. Like I've
No.
brought up this trade before, and people are like, "Oh, like Lamar's such a difference maker at QB."
It
Right?
doesn't matter. Bijan's a top 5 pick in one quarterback, and that's at minimum.
Yeah. Oh, easily, dude. I was making an argument that he could be the 101 this year easily when you look at the 3-game stretch he had with Michael Penix. I think he was averaging 26.5 PPR points per game. That'll do, right? So,
Yeah, I mean not over Jamar Chase, but yeah.
Oh, listen to you. Drawing the line in the sand. I like it. So you think
you can't put anybody over Jamar Chase. It's just ridiculous. He's in the perfect situation and he is a perfect player.
Yeah,
So,
the defense is so bad. He's got an amazing quarterback. He's the focal point. Amazing run after the catch. Jamar Chase is that's a big win for me, right? I got him in a few dynasty leagues. I got him in one of my redraft leagues, like when people were. It was during that hype that people said he couldn't catch the ball, right? That like you gotta spot the noise sometimes, right? And not be afraid to just be like, no, that's still a guy. Like he's a dog. And so that's one of my favorite players. Same with Alvin Kamara, like these guys who you hit on them and you love the way they play and then they do so much for you in fantasy and you're just like love them that much more. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool. One last guy that I also, this is a win, got him for pennies on the dollar. I think I traded him for like Zay Jones and Joshua Kelly at one point was Nico Collins. And that was like 2 years ago. So I have Nico Collins in most of my leagues. Again, just even after he had a great year in 2023, I was happy to go and pay like a late first for him when people were still not completely sold on him. And I think he just showed such explosive upside. Another guy that Matt Harmon is super high on, believes he's firmly a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. This chart shows him in really elite space, over 3.5 yards per route run versus man, over 2 yards per route run versus zone. Him and AJ Brown kind of standing out among the rest here. Do you see Nico as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver?
I think there are roughly a dozen top 5 dynasty receivers. It's just the league is just absolutely loaded with young talent at the moment that you have to exclude somebody. Like,
Right.
are you going to exclude Malik Nabers or Brian
Amon
Thomas
Ra,
Jr.
right?
or
Yeah,
Amon Ra or
yeah,
Puka? Like,
right,
all these guys can't make the list. I'm sorry.
right.
Right now, I don't have Nico in the top 5, but he is incredible. And for a little peek behind the scenes, actually, I got involved with the Player Profiler Dynasty rankings in 2023 and 2024. In those 2 years, I was the entire time just telling Matt every week, we got to move up Nico. We got
Yeah.
to move up Nico. We got to move up Nico. And he got somewhat annoyed after a bit. But probably one of my biggest wins.
Yeah. So give me your top 5 then, if you don't mind being put on the spot. Give me your top 5 dynasty wide receivers.
Sure. So the top 3 are locked in place, in my opinion. It's Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb in some order. And then
Interesting.
after that, there's another big tier, in my opinion, with Puka, Nabers, Amon Ra, Brian Thomas Jr., and Nico Collins. And you
Okay.
could throw Drake London in there.
Okay.
Personally, I would have Nabers in there. And, now I kind of want to throw Nico at the 5 spot, actually, but it kind of changes every day.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with any of those 8.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think the one thing you said that's ludicrous is having Nabers outside of the top 3. Like, this guy's so young, set I believe record.
You're just talking about it. Situation, man. It's the New York Giants.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Russ could cook with him, bro.
No, come on. He's gonna play like 8 games and then get benched.
Yeah, and Jackson Dart looked kind of good, right, in week 1. Like, that could be a good thing. I think there's reason to be cautiously optimistic there. He's so much younger than the rest of those guys. He's got so much dog in him. Are you any part of you like worried about longevity with like the toe injury that he's been hanging on to since college? Does any of that factor into how you're ranking him at all?
Not really. I don't think we should really factor in injuries in the dynasty rankings unless it's like, oh, this guy blew an ACL or something.
Yeah.
Back in the day, a few years back, one thing that people would say all the time was that AJ Brown was injury prone and his knee was going to be a real problem in the future. And then look how that turned out. He's been really healthy over the last few years. And back in that chart you were just showing, he's right there with Nico Collins as one of the best receivers in the league.
So you had to have seen the thing come out about him saying he was like draining his knee twice a week in the 2024 season. You're telling me that doesn't scare you off him in Dynasty?
Not really. I mean, he's awesome. He's like easily a top 5 real life receiver.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting the Eagles to throw way more this year.
Oh,
when you look at all the metrics, AJ Brown is just incredible. And if there's just no chance that they're going to throw the ball as little as they did last year, in my opinion.
So does that mean that you've got Saquon outside of your top 3 redraft rankings?
He's borderline. Actually, I believe right now he is at 4 in my PPR rankings. And that is because I am being very aggressive on one CeeDee Lamb, who I have 2 overall.
Interesting. I thought it had to have been like Jahmyr Gibbs sneaking in there. I think he could see a little more usage. This is like a year where, to your point, it's just so stacked at the top. Gibbs is in a really good spot. End of the year on fire. So did Bijan Robinson. Jamar Chase fresh off a triple crown, but still you're willing to say, hey, there's a guy that I didn't even just mention that could outproduce all those guys, right? So what a fun time to be alive.
Really is. This
So
receiver group is just ridiculous.
yeah, and it was fun watching Jamar Chase cook second string players in preseason week 1. Like I was like watching this, I'm like, this is sad. Like people on the other side of the ball are like competing for their livelihood and just getting cooked by the best player on the planet. You know what I mean? Well, let's close it out, man. One of the other, I mean, dude, you're behind the scenes at so much here. And one of the things you also work on is our Breakout Finder app, which is a really cool way of helping kind of analyze which rookies have the highest propensity to break out that maybe we're not, that are kind of hiding in plain sight. So can you just give us a little peek behind the veil for people who don't have the app, like maybe one surprise stud that you like that showed up in the Breakout Finder app a little more favorably than others some would expect?
Yeah, one guy that just kept growing on me all throughout my time looking into prospect data was Jaden Higgins, receiver from Iowa State, now on the Texans. He just had elite per route metrics across the board. And then he's also, he's kind of like a discount Ted McMillan in a way. Very, very similar play styles, in my opinion. He can catch everything. And I love the situation as well. Playing across from Nico Collins, we'll see a lot of one-on-ones. And I think he can play kind of a similar role to Nico. It should be fun.
Interesting. I love it. He is a guy where, he's definitely, I think he's priced somewhat appropriately there, right? Like even in best ball, just for example, he's like a top 85 pick, right? You're starting to decide if you want to go with like a guy like TJ Hawkinson who can hold down your tight end spot, or an unproven rookie, right? Like Jaden Higgins, but there's certainly some upside there, and locking in a receiver with his upside in the middle range of drafts. So, a great
And
call.
I'll give you one more too.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
One more is Trey Harris. The per route metrics they're not just great, they are ridiculous. Like they break all the spreadsheets, like 5 yards per route run.
Yeah.
You never see that. And it was a small sample career from him, but geez, it's ridiculous, the per route metrics. And I'm not sure if he's going to get on the field this year. So I might be I might take some L's on that in Dynasty. What do you think?
Dude, when you were first on the show, I think we had a Trey Harris like seance where we were talking about how amazing the data was. I loved the film. One thing I don't love is the film so far in the preseason, right? We've got a couple weeks to work off of now where he's seen some decent snaps and struggling to produce, not really getting on the stat sheet. And the more concerning part is when you look at the film, there's not a bunch of separation there, right? And I don't think he was ever, like, you would think with yards per route run, he'd be an amazing separator to get that type of, efficiency, right? But it's just, there's something that's not adding up there. I think that the Chargers are seeing it too, with them going out and getting Keenan Allen, with them giving so much burn to Keandre Lambert-Smith, who's been kind of the talk of camp. So he's one of these guys where certainly think the market, especially in best ball, I do play a lot of that, it hasn't fully corrected, where like Trey Harris and Keenan Allen's ADP should probably be flipped right now. I think, especially in redraft, right? And so I think you're going to see a discount on Keenan Allen in any drafts you're doing over the next week or two. It's still kind of correcting that way, but I've been noticing, I was getting a lot of Keenan Allen before he signed with the Chargers because I knew he wasn't toast, and it was like free at the 18th round. But now I'm still not out on him, and I'm still targeting him pretty aggressively because, Trey Harris was going at like 100 ADP. Now he's dipping down to like 130, 140. And again, Keenan Allen was going like 200. Now he's dipping up to 150. And I'm like, I think, again, it's more of just a straight up almost flip at this point where Keenan Allen should probably be closer to the top 100 players. And Trey Harris should be one of these guys. Like, have you seen what the hell is happening to Jack Besh's ADP because of Deontay Thornton, right? And things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's sort of, I can't believe you can get a second round player like Jack Besh at like 185. But I think that's almost kind of how I see the situation with Trey Harris.
Yeah, it's really rough because we know Ladd's going to be on the field and Keenan's going to be on the field a ton. So I think that third receiver spot really comes down to Quentin Johnston versus Trey Harris versus Keandre Lambert-Smith.
Right. In a run heavy offense that plays a lot of 2 wide receiver sets.
Yeah, it's really a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling great about my Trey Harris bags, even though I just love the spreadsheet so much.
Yeah, and I think there is maybe some credence there of like if you see him, improving throughout the year and the price kind of still continues to drop because the situation's so bad, he might be a cheap buy low, but
Yeah.
at this point I don't think people are panicking quite yet. Maybe they should be, right? And
Yeah.
once that panic happens, there's still some underlying talent there, but I want to see him get some more separation in the NFL. So I'm going to be looking closely for that.
Yeah, right now he's probably a hold, but there could very well be a chance to buy low for, I don't know, if you could buy him for a third mid-season, and then he is a rookie, so we're looking at that late season upside, right?
Right.
That's just a great strategy for Dynasty in general. Is wait until the rookies are not doing anything in like week 6, week 8, and then go buy them.
Yep. You heard it here first. Bringing all the fantasy nuggets to win your leagues. Evan, thank you so much for joining the show today. Close it out. Plug anything you want. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at EvanRinglerFF. And besides that, all of my work is at PlayerProfiler.com. I'm working with all the rankings there and all of the analytics. And soon to come is a lot of really cool new free metrics on player pages, including stuff like that chart we just showed, yards per out, run versus man and zone, and first read target share, and design runs and scrambles and all this kind of stuff. So be on the lookout for that very soon.
So excited, man. If you like the show, give it a thumbs up, comment any questions or feedback you have for Evan and I, and subscribe to the Player Profiler page so we can help you win your fantasy leagues. Good luck. Thanks for watching.